Good morning, everybody. Today is February 26, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I am Goz. To my left, the host of the show, Gorgeous George. To his left, it's MMA Junkie Radio's fight analyst, Dan Tom. And back in New York, it's Danny Okers. How's everybody doing on a Monday?
You know.
Yeah. What's the fastest you guys can talk?
Hi, man.
I don't know.
Like a Boomhauer impression there. It get really offensive. Sorry.
I'm going to get out of the way of these speed demons over here.
But you know what? If I have Red Bull, then it really does help.
Yeah?
Yeah. All that jitteriness, it will spill out. I'll trip over myself. But I think I slowed down a lot once I got the Bell's palsy.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't really try it. I think once in a while, on those reads that I've done for a while, I can kind of
do you think you could be
book on those a little? One
of those guys that, what are they, auctioneers? Is that what they're called?
They are, yeah. I think a lot of it is practice, but mostly, I don't know that they're saying, you know, oh, 7,500, do I hear 7,700, 78? I don't think they're saying it all. I think they're just going 75, 77, like that. But they're implying, like, with all the stuff that's going on, I think there's something in the back that says, it's 7,500, do I hear 7,700? If not, do I hear 800, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I think there's little shortcuts that they're doing. They're not enunciating everything. So I think if you just figure that little gibberish out, yeah, I could probably try it. Or
good point.
I wouldn't do it on day one. I mean, but give me about a year, and I think, huh?
So they'll say, like, 7,500 to the guy in the Adidas jacket. You know, like, they're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I wonder if they're well paid.
Are you about to say speaking of auctioneers, Dan?
No, I was actually going to say speaking of.
Are you about to
I was actually going to go speaking of Bell Ballsy, actually, which is probably, I guess, equally as random. But
holy shit.
I did have a question for George later on that note. Just kind of struck a pin in my head.
Bell's palsy?
Yeah.
What's the question?
Well, I can share it on the pre-show here. Just something I've noticed, and now I'm kind of worried because other people have started noticing it, and my eye will kind of just start slumping over on my right side there, and it's not like affecting my vision or anything. And I read up on it, and apparently it's common after. I don't think it's that, but because one of the things I was reading was it can be you can have that after trauma or concussions, and or if your eyes are just tired and stuff. But then I don't know. I've had people in my family with Bell palsy as well. I'm just not as familiar with those symptoms. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll tell you this much: lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, and stress can give you Bell's palsy.
Check.
So I don't know what you're waiting for on your sleep schedule.
There's the general.
And but basically, you know, you need to get on that.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
Nobody has the general, progressive, and what was the other one?
I have progressive.
Nah. What was the other one? The general and who? We just said it this morning. Geico.
Yeah,
Nobody has that.
They got to go ahead.
Talk to all your friends. Nobody has those insurance. I don't know how they keep up with these commercials. Where are they getting this money? Where's this funding coming from?
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goz. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMA Junkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goz.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. These are Ace Co-hosts. To my left, it's the fight analyst, Dan Tom, and back east, handling all the producing duties, Danny Otto. What's up, everybody? How was your weekend?
Very good. How was yours?
Good.
Good. Chill. Nothing exciting in my life. Dan Tom?
Really good.
Danny Otto?
It was good.
All right. Good job.
I have a question about your weekend.
Sure.
You went to go see your godson play, right?
Football, yeah.
Football. But
7
when I
on
asked
7.
you, I go, how'd he do? And then you said he went 2 for 3, and I thought maybe that was baseball. But then I saw you post a video of him throwing a spiral, so I was like, what does that mean?
The team went 2-1.
Oh, they had more.
They had
than one game.
3
They
games.
played that many games?
Well, they're quick.
Football?
It's 7 on 7, passing only,
Ah.
and it's like the spring leagues, you know.
So like what Calvary Chapel had to do back in the day, or is this some?
Yeah, but they're in shorts and they're in
Flag?
sweats. No, it's just touch them. That's it.
Oh.
Not even two-hand touch. No pulling a flag. Just touch them. But it's quick. It's kind of like how we did at the flag football game at Extreme. You get, I think, 3 downs or 4 downs to get to that little pylon, and then you get a new set of downs, and then you got to score. Or if not, then the other team goes. It's really fast. In fact, when I thought it was halftime, they went into overtime.
Oh.
And then the overtime was so dumb, man, which could lead to my stun gun story for today. If you guys want to just get right into it.
Sure.
Their overtime was, so they played, look, each team had possession about 4 or 5 times. And then when the clock ran out, they had the equal amount of points. So then they go to an overtime. So I'm thinking, remember, I thought it was halftime, so I thought we were going to see a whole sequence again. But they only ran the one play, and it was incomplete, our guys. Then they ran a handoff, and the guy got 1 yard, and they touched him, and they won. They advanced over. They advanced. Now, get this. The winner plays another team, and had they won again, they would be playing at Cowboy Stadium. Like, it was kind of a big deal, in a way, you know?
Oh, wow, that'd have been cool.
Right.
Is he the one that, is he a Cowboys fan? I know.
No, he's a
kids
Saints
is, right?
fan.
I think it's Marcus, right? The one in the middle.
Lucas in the middle is the
Lucas?
Cowboys fan,
Okay.
yeah. So they would have advanced if they had won like 2 more games. I think that was one of them. Maybe 3. I don't know. But they were 5-0 going into that, and that was it. That one loss sent them home. And so I'm watching kind of from the bleachers, and as I'm watching all this unfold, my buddy Mike, he told me that when he was there, he overheard them say, whoever has the longest pass wins the overtime. And again, ours was incomplete, and then they just ran it for a yard. They said no. Some guy came over and said they gained a yard, they advance. So the whole thing was dumb, but Woody swears that the rule book said, and that the guy quoted it, it's the longest pass. So I told him, well, why didn't the coach like appeal or call for a commissioner or something? He goes, well, the guy they called over supposedly was or something. And then he just didn't want to talk about it. He was kind of fuming mad. And by then, we're already walking back to the cars. It's not like we're going to run back and play
These are
it
kids
again.
that traveled
But
from California to Vegas.
Yeah, like, you guys got a hotel room. You guys drove far. There was a lot of Hawaiian teams there. A lot of 808s were in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And to just kind of go, oh, really? Oh, that's it? Okay. I don't understand. I thought the coach would have said, hold on a second. Stop everything. Dude, this park was full of kids. A lot of great athletes were there.
Was Tavares' team there? They seem pretty young.
Yeah, it was a lot of 8th graders, 9th graders, and 10th graders, and kids that are just in great shape. And I mean, all they were running was patterns, and then those same guys, a lot of them would play defense as well. So I don't know. I just couldn't believe that. Even if it was running advances you, what kind of an overtime is that? Just play 3 plays or whatever. Whoever gets the farthest on the 3 plays. I don't know. I've just never heard of an overtime like that. I mean, it'd be like in football, in college football, just whoever gets more yards on one play.
That's stupid.
You play that whole game just for that with the stakes that high. It can't be a time issue because it was always like 30 minutes in between games. So that said, my little godson's got a nice spiral. I mean, now he's about 6 feet tall and just keeps growing. And
little godson, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always called him my little buddy when he asks me how I'm doing via text or whatever. Hey, pretty good little buddy. I can't anymore. I mean, he doesn't tower over me. We're really close, but I can tell he's a little bit taller. And he's such a nice kid. Really chill, really reserved. And I was waiting for like the punk to come out at some point when he became a teenager. And him and his brother's version of punks isn't really that bad, honestly. They're all really good kids. It's just at some point they're just kind of like, you know, when I'm over there at the house, you could just hear them like either bicker with each other, or their friends, or their parents. Like, I don't want to take the trash out, you know, whatever. That I'm used to, you know. But I just kept thinking it's the other two brothers snap a little bit more. He's like, chill, man. I mean, really, really kick back and, you know, like listens to you, answers you, isn't waiting to dig into his phone, which a lot of teenagers are. You talk to a teenager nowadays, and it's like, how you been? Good. Oh, how was your weekend? Oh, it was pretty good. You know, and they keep going back and burying their nose in the phone. He'll tell you it was pretty good. You know, we had a long drive here to Vegas. How was your weekend? Like, he actually will engage you, you know. And then if there's a lull, or if you then move on to something, then he might check his phone. But he's not fidgety like that. So I was really, really proud, man. It was really, really cool. Fun times. Look, let's get into it. UFC Orlando, or UFC on Fox 28, whatever you want to call it. It took place this past weekend, and there was some great fights. There was some blood. There was some upsets. Parlays were not being hit, at least on my side. And, of course, there was controversy. Where do you want to start?
Controversy.
Yeah, why not?
Controversy. You want to start with that daily debate?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I mean, because this question is going to apply to what we're going to talk about for at least the next hour or so. I have to believe it, with some sprinkling in of Andrade and Torres, OSP, yeah, you know me, and Queen Latifah, who now I think we have to call him King Latifi. He's that legit. You know, he's really moving out. He's calling Cormier out, for crying out loud. And then, of course, Mike Perry and Max Griffin, they had a barn burner too. So the question for today is, do you believe Jeremy Stephens' two elbows to the back of Josh Emmett's head and the knee to the head he threw right after, if it affected the outcome of the fight? There's still actually 6 minutes left to vote. So as of right now, 1,752 people have voted. 54% said no. 46% said yes. What do you think, Gus?
It's such a tough question because the only guy that can really answer that question is Josh Emmett. But I would say that most fighters, if they took the first elbow, I thought was close, still at the back of the head, but the second one was pretty clear. And anybody who takes that elbow at any moment in a fight, it's gonna affect them. So I would have to say, yes, it did affect the outcome of the fight. Or it could have.
And you haven't even gotten to the knee yet.
I haven't even gotten to the knee. I felt like the knee barely grazed him. But then again, did Jeremy Stephens go, hey, I think I'm just going to throw a knee that's gonna miss. He didn't say that, right? He did it with that intention. Regardless if it nicked him or not, it's in the rule book that you can't do it. So he can fall back on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm right with you. I mean, you almost said it as perfectly as I wanted to say it, especially after watching the replay. Because when Emmett's trying to grab the single, or at least grab a hold of Stephens, he's hurt, but he's still in the fight. He does obviously fold his body, and the back of the head's exposed. The first one, I give him a pass. Because when you're going back and throwing an elbow, that motion, even though it's half a second or maybe less, or I don't know, whatever it takes, you know, the other guy's moving too. So the first one lands what looks to be the back of the head, but that's not where it started. When he started it, it didn't look like it was with that intention. The second one, though, is clear. Like, he knows what he just hit, and he aims for the spot, and it's like, now there's a big old target there. He hits it. Now, I'm looking at Mergliata and his mechanics. He's right there. I don't understand why he didn't react to it. I mean, he's inching closer, but I can't tell if it's like inching closer because there's some sort of a penalty or foul he wants to say or stop or anything, or if he's just getting closer to the action. And now, of course, let's get to the knee. I mean, his Emmett, under any rules, is a grounded opponent. His knee was down, and Stephens threw the knee with the intent to hit the head. Whether you argue he missed or didn't, it doesn't matter. The intent was there. So I just feel like, to answer this question, yes, the outcome was affected, but I do side with he nicked the head. I'm not on the side that he missed the head. He nicked it. I've slowed it down, and I've seen some versions, and it's not much, but we don't know how that outcome can be affected or not, and so therefore I believe that was an illegal strike. Danton?
The question, as far as the question goes, I don't believe it affected the outcome. I believe it happened in a layer of 5. I believe there's initial shot that hurt Emmett, that got him in wobbly legs and in trouble in the first place. I believe that the elbow, the argument there is situational circumstance versus illegality. I actually am sympathetic to the situational circumstance of Emmett trying to fish in for a single. Then after that, what gets up is the illegal knee. But what actually drops Emmett for the finishing blow of the elbows was a right hand after said illegal knee and the finishing elbow. So I believe all 3 fight-changing shots were not the illegal ones in question. But as far as the outcome goes, illegal is illegal. I understand that, and I also understand the argument of if the ref doesn't call something, you have to go with what the ref ultimately deems.
There you have it, folks. That's what we think here on the MMA Junkie Radio side in regards to our daily debate. All right, so let's expand on this a little bit. You know, Stevens ain't stopping unless someone's stopping him, right? That's Murgliata. Even though one could say, hey, man, that's blatant what you're doing, he, especially a veteran who's been in the fight game for so long, he's got to know what these rules are. You know, this whole thing, what he was saying in the back about the 2 hands, as long as I took one hand off, yeah, that only applies if you're in that football stance. The guy had a knee down no matter what. He was illegal. 2016 and before rules, 2017 rules, whatever you want to call him, he was grounded. And so he went in there just thinking, I think he was just thinking, as long as our hands up, it's legal. And so that was incorrect. So that, you know, mistake there by Stevens for him not to know that. I'm sure Murgliata has explained this many times, so I believe that in the back, Stevens just didn't understand him. I have to believe Dan explains this as best as you can, because that's what they do. That's what they, you know. I mean, there's no other way. He had to have explained it right, and Stevens just didn't understand him. But what can happen now? Nothing. Parlays lost, straight bets lost. The results are done. One guy had his hand raised. It's done, man. It's in the record book. The only thing that can happen is Emmett can appeal. I don't think it's going to go his way, because the commission's going to say, well, we go according to what the ref says. I think if something was going to happen, it was going to happen that night. If he had actually interjected and they went to a replay and one fighter could or couldn't continue, and more than likely in the case that if he couldn't continue, he'd have to make a decision there. And I don't see how he would have said that was unintentional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's aiming for the head. He actually, Stevens would have been disqualified and Emmett would have been your winner. But that all didn't happen. And look, I do want to be clear. I thought about this. Dan Murgliata, to me, is a fine referee. If you want to say, oh, what's your grade? I'd say he's an A. I don't really remember too many fumbles. And if there are, over as many fights as they do, that's going to happen, man. I'm not going to hold that against them. So he's an A. He's a 10. He's a great referee. He just messed this up. He had a bad night in regards to this. That I can say, and I think being honest like that is the only way to call it. We have to do that more in mixed martial arts, because otherwise we're not going to grow. The same way, if Kobe Bryant were to go 3 for 22, we would be in here going, man, Kobe sucked last night, wouldn't we? We wouldn't be going like, oh my God, we'd want to hurt his feelings, you know, and say he's a great fighter. I mean, no, last night he sucked. Kobe's a great basketball player, but last night he sucked. The same way we'd come in if he was 22 out of 25 and only missed 3. We'd go, oh my God, that was amazing. Dan Murgliata had a bad night.
I don't want to take away from Jeremy Stevens, because he had a great performance, right? I mean, Josh Emmett didn't trip and fall. He ended up on the ground because
the punch put him there, yeah.
The way Jeremy
It was like a long left hook, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't want to take away from the guy, but I feel like come Monday, some of that is being taken away from him, and I think it sucks because, I mean, he looked great, and he's really turned a corner in his game. I just don't understand the knee. I mean, maybe he thought he was getting up, because, I mean, at least like when you go back to Pride fighters, like remember when Vanderlei, he held back one time on a soccer kick. And you get that because he's trained that. They used to be able to do that in Pride. At no time have they, well, in the beginning you could, but in Jeremy Stevens' lifetime, he was never able to throw that knee.
Right.
So, oh man, I mean, it's part of the rule set. You got to know better, but so much shit's going on at that time that it's hard to really fault the guy.
Yeah, that was my initial criticism, because it just looked so blatant, and I'm like, okay, well, that's hard to defend there. But it looked so blatant because it was blatant, because in Jeremy Stevens' head, although he was wrong, in Jeremy Stevens' head, as he explained, he thought he was in the right. And I think, you know, our own Ben Folks did an excellent job with some of the written stuff he put out on Junkie this weekend. It's still up there to go check out. That really clarifies the ruling. But again, it all ultimately comes down to, you know, wrong rules is, you know, unfair rules is unfair rules, but I think Goes brings up a good point. You know, I think we need to be careful not to take away too much from Jeremy Stevens, because he's a guy who I've been long saying, you know, he's on this like Robbie Lawler like renaissance right now, and I think we need to pay attention to that.
Do you think the knee connected, even if it was just a nick?
I thought it connected from what I saw on the replay, but it did not appear to affect the fight, because again, he was already hurt, and the trajectory of Emmett didn't shift. That it didn't mean that people were saying, oh, it means that the knee didn't hit because Emmett's trajectory of him already falling didn't change. But that doesn't mean that the knee didn't hit. But what that does tell me is that the knee probably didn't hit hard. If we're with a slow-mo replay, we're having this much dissension in the argument in the first place. That means it's happening in that close arguable space. And then with the trajectory of Emmett, didn't show that it didn't show that it hit. Even in the retraction knee that people are pointing to, where when the knee retracts and it comes back down, it hits the back of Emmett's head a little more clearer. But A, that's a nothing shot. It just looks a little more emphatic in the replay. And B, that shot did not compromise Emmett's base or balance. He's still on his way to tripoding up after the knee came up and came down. Emmett is actually still continuing his motion. It's the right uppercut that people are forgetting to talk about in this whole sequence that comes right after that drops Emmett back and finishes the job and lays him out for those subsequent elbows.
The only thing I'm not sure of is how do we know that graze or the knee hitting him on the way back didn't affect him, even if it was just a little bit.
We don't, which is why I ultimately, ended with my take on the daily debate, which is, ultimately rules are rules, right, guys? And I think that's where they do have to come in, where we can only interpret so much. At the end of the day, we kind of have to lean on these rules. They are there for a reason, and as the articles I reference that are up on our site that, beautifully points out, so.
And here's another thing too. Why didn't Dan stop whether he hit the knee or not? The intent was there. Let's say the fight continues. Shouldn't he be letting Jeremy know, hey, you just did something illegal? And the reason, and the way I compare that is, if Goes and I are fighting and I'm like this, all right, wouldn't at some point you go, hey, tuck in your fingers? You didn't commit the foul yet, but you're about to, right?
Right.
Maybe he thought he was aiming for the shoulder or something, and he didn't want to break up the moment.
To me, what it looked like, and maybe this is me editorializing.
Maybe, man, but even if this one misses, that one hits. I mean, that followed up on the elbows. It just seems like, hey, you're in a street fight here with no rules, and this guy's got and I want to say I know the game's happening fast, but I felt like there was times where an interjection could happen, and they could have said, hold on a second, fouls are being committed here, or one of them, whether it was a nick or not, the intent is bad. This one landed, I don't know, some separation.
I agree. No, I agree. But I was going to say, to me, I don't know what you guys think. Maybe this is me just editorializing what it looked like instead of seeing that maybe we should have seen George. But to me, it looked like one of those things where you see the ref sees the low blow and he's going to go in to say something, but he sees that the fighters continue, that both of them want to continue on, and they kind of go, oh, we've seen that a million times. And it almost seemed like that was Mergliotta's body language instead, where he goes, oh, there's because it almost looked like his body language acknowledged that there was something wrong for a brief second, but then got out of the way and decided to let the action play, which maybe is fine in the low blow scenario, but you're right, maybe something like that, because we've seen it before. They always stop the action, and people, the crowd will go, oh, come on, it was just getting good, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't stop it.
Yeah.
Can we continue along the lines of the same topic, but just a different avenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The broadcast team, right, and how they handled it. You have Cormier, right, and he's given his analysis, and then afterwards you even hear Dominic Cruz, who's a teammate of Jeremy Stevens, and he kind of gives his 2 cents. And a lot of people were kind of coming at Dominic Cruz at the way he was presenting that argument, and I think just a lot of favoritism was being shown, right? How did you guys feel about that?
Well, he shut it down pretty early by basically saying there is no foul if Dan didn't call it, which is technically true. I think what people wanted to hear was, well, aside from that, should he have called it, And Dominic kind of seemed to steer away from that because he knew that his answer might be in agreement with it being a foul. So, yeah, that's the part that at some point, if he didn't acknowledge, that he was wrong there. But in him trying to keep it simple, there's 4 people that want to throw their opinions out there, including Karen Bryant, Michael and Dom, and then the other 2, John and Daniel, who are also It could be that they're just giving their opinion and going boom, boom, next guy, next guy, next guy. I don't know, but yeah, I sense that a little bit.
I think it just comes down to that it was a complicated topic that had 3 separate arguments, right? We have the speculative argument of what our daily debate was. Did it cause a damage? And we have the 2 more official arguments, which are kind of 2 on the opposite side, where you had DC talking rules are rules, disqualification is a disqualification, illegality is illegality, whereas Cruz was arguing more, well, if the ref doesn't call it, the ref doesn't call it. And it came off as more of from the fighter point of view, which is fine. That's why he's there. But here's what the problem is, and it's okay to debate about these close things and controversial things. That's why they have the desk set up. The problem is when Cruz, to no fault of his own, just happens to be related to the fighter in question, Jeremy Stevens. So now we're seeing a lot of talk, at least I am, on the Twitter sphere of, the conflict of interest, and, which we'll get into maybe later with the Latifi and Daniel Cormier. And again, not bad things or egregious things, but these are things that kind of come into question with the broadcast of active fighters. I think that is the one thing here that is the more unfortunate thing. Like, we're going to have controversy in the sport. It's good for these guys to hash it out. Like, that's fine. It's entertaining when DC or whoever goes at it. But but we saw, I think, last night when the personal things attached, we kind of saw that because I think someone was using that against it, and Cruz was getting defensive, going, no, this has nothing to do with Jeremy Stevens being my friend, and you kind of run into that territory, which is tough.
So that was going to be my question.
Okay.
Going forward, okay, could it maybe benefit them to look and say, all right, these 2 guys are in the main event. We have this guy here. He trains with him. Maybe we'll just use him for the next card, and we'll go with Paul Felder instead, or something like that.
Maybe, but the tentacles that everyone has stretch so far that one's tough. And I'll give you an example. All right, you picked Paul Felder, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's out of Rufus Sport. He's a Philly guy.
You gotta look at the camp. You gotta maybe next thing you look at is maybe weight class, right? Well, they're in the same weight class, and he's ranked below him, something like that. What would be after weight class? Then maybe. I think that's it, right?
I know that a lot of wrestlers will always favor a wrestler, or a BJJ guy, same thing. The martial art or sport that they come from can sometimes be an influence. The university they may have attended, the camp they're with, there's so many things, man. Whew, that one's a tough one. Paul Felder, you actually may have just gotten a perfect guy, because he's not a featherweight, he's a lightweight. He's out of Rufus Sport, and one guy's out of Alliance, the other one's from Team Alpha Male, and he's from the East Coast. The other guys are from, they're living on the West Coast. There's really not sort of bias, but I always find that no matter what, we're all so closely attached that it's really difficult to just go, that guy's straight. Like he's calling it right down the middle, and it takes you a while to acquire that.
We're here at the Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, and if you look up, there's all kinds of sports. There's basketball, football, baseball, all that stuff. But that's one thing that we've never really had to deal with in any of those other sports, right? It rarely comes up.
Well,
he's calling that game because he used to be a Dallas Cowboy or something. It rarely comes up.
Here's the thing. I don't know that we're immersed in those sports as much as the fans that are immersed in those sports.
NASCAR, it comes up.
No, but think about it. All right. Your example is baseball, right?
Let's just say. Or football, whatever.
All right, football. So Aikman calls Cowboys games for sure.
Yeah.
He's earned the right to be there and call it down the middle, because you have to have a lot of games under your belt, for one, and also be generations removed. He's probably at least like a good maybe second cycle removed from when he played. Therefore, I don't think he gets it that much. But I'm not on those forums, Reddit, the Underground, Junkie, Twitter, the way a Cowboys fan might, and may actually be able to say, no, you should hear him here in Dallas. Oh boy, he handles himself, differently. Whereas all of us, we're immersed in MMA. We kind of see it all the time. So it's tough to say, but you're right. I haven't heard of it as much, but I think it's because we don't follow those sports as closely. We just follow them enough to know what our teams are doing and who's in the Super Bowl, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with Goz's point about trying to be a little more careful about it, especially in a day and age where it looks like they're expanding their call team. It looks like maybe they could have different options.
Yeah,
but at the same time, talking about what you guys are talking about other sports, I could completely see the angle where they go, well, Cruz is, we're getting good feedback about Cruz on the desk, which is true. He gets a lot of good feedback on the desk. And a lot of times in those sports, they'll have connections to those teams representing on the panel because it makes it more enticing. So I could easily see from a production angle them going, yeah, put Cruz on there for this fight. That's no problem. But
yeah. And at the same time, the next guy, is he not going to have any bias at all? I find that hard to believe. And do we want to sacrifice that for the analysis of a former world champion who really, really knows how to analyze fights and may occasionally come up on something like this. I mean, what he said wasn't wrong. It's just perceived to be a bigger deal than it is because they're teammates and friends. And that's just this young sport of ours is what it boils down to. All right, let's take this break. When we come back, we'll talk to Matt Erickson, who was in Orlando, Florida, covering UFC on Fox 28. We'll get his thoughts on the fights. We'll also take your calls at 866-522-2846.
They are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tats. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
On the day I was born, the nurses all gathered round.
Start your day with SiriusXM. Enable the SiriusXM skill on your Amazon device. Then tell Alexa to set an alarm for your favorite channel. You'll wake up to the sounds of SiriusXM. With SiriusXM and Alexa, you can get your latest sports news each morning without picking up your phone or turning on the TV. All right, Matt Erickson, assistant editor, at MMA Junkie. He covered UFC on Fox 28 in Orlando, Florida.
That's his theme music, right?
It was, yeah.
What do you picture him doing when he's walking out to this? What is going on in his life? I'll give my scenario. Somebody opened up a sliding door, and he's got a spatula, some meat in his hand, sunglasses, walking out with an apron or something. He's about to grill.
I will throw in a toothpick to that equation. I think he's going to throw a Razor Ramon toothpick on his way to that action, you know?
I see him at a Pearl Jam concert.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and he's front row, and all the other hardcores are there with him, except Eddie Vedder goes out of his way to point at him, and Matt points him back, kind of like, I know who you are, and you know who I am, and all the others are like, oh, fuck, how come you got a point and I didn't? You know?
That's actually happened, I think.
That's good.
I think so, because of a jersey or something like that he was wearing.
Shirt, I think.
Who knows? Yeah, let's bring this Joker in. What's up, Matt? How you doing? Can you hear us when I say that?
Yeah. What's up,
sorry. This fine gentleman joins us now on MMA Junkie Radio. What's up, Matt? How you doing?
It is such a good day when you guys bring up Pearl Jam, and I don't have to do it for you to like hijack the show for a couple minutes.
And today we're going to give you more than 2 minutes and 20 seconds like we did last Friday. So how about that?
That was pretty weak, but, you know, I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of the MMA media, man. I get no respect. I'm just kind of here in the background. I'm here, but nobody pays attention. I'm not very loud and obnoxious. Like,
oh, come on, Mark.
On Facebook, you are. Bring up Trump and put Trump and Matt Erickson and put that into Facebook, and you'll see how loud and obnoxious he can get.
No comment.
By the way, when I left, I think he was addressing all the governors, so I recorded it. I'm anxious to see what was chatted about there. But Matt Erickson, you were in Orlando this past weekend. Let's jump right to it, man. What did you see from your seat in regards to Stevens and Emmett, the ending?
Well, obviously, when you're sitting there watching it, 15 feet away or whatever, when he threw the knee, you're going, that's an illegal knee. You know what I mean? That's your instinct. Whether it landed or not, I'm sitting there thinking it's an illegal knee, and then I have to wait and see if it actually landed on the replay. Now, from where I'm sitting on the floor looking at, overhead monitors way up in the rafters, it was actually hard for me to tell from down there whether or not it hit. And, of course, I have no benefit of being able to listen to John Anik and Daniel Cormier say whether or not it hit. When I looked at it on the UFC on Fox Twitter account, it didn't look to me like it hit. Now, if it glanced the back of his head as his knee was coming back, does that still make it illegal? I don't know, and I think that's one of the interesting conversations that's happening right now is that everybody seems to be so damn confused about the rules, including the fighters, including perhaps the referees, including the media, especially the fans. Nobody knows exactly what rules are which and when they need to be applied.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, he grazed him on the way up, and on the way back, he clearly hit him. So one of those two, if not both, were a foul. I know the grazer isn't the same as the grazer on the nuts, because that one can fucking be painful. Trust me, I've gotten a few of those. But either way, without us not knowing, dude, it's just like when I point back to Kimbo getting knocked out by a jab by Seth Petrozelli that looked like the laziest jab ever, and then other guys getting rocked in the jaw. You just don't know, man. The human head is, sensitive in different parts, and I would hate to just assume that because it was a grazer, it didn't somehow affect them, especially when the guy clearly threw it with that kind of intent. Now, there's nothing we can do about it now. All they can do is appeal, which I think Emmett plans on doing, right, Matt? I think you heard that in the background, in the backstage, excuse me.
I have not heard that officially, but I would absolutely assume that he's going to appeal. I mean, he's got every reason to, I mean, what's it going to hurt for him to appeal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Best case scenario is he gets the outcome changed and he gets the loss taken off of his record. Worst case scenario, nothing happens at all, and he just goes on and has to rebound. So if he's wise, he will appeal. And judging from what the guys in his camp that were there with him had to say about it, I would think for sure they're going to have to appeal.
Yeah, it definitely benefits for him to appeal. You just never know what might happen. I don't think it'll be overturned, but the other thing too is, how does the UFC view it? Will they does Emmett's stock drop? Health aside, you obviously want both guys to come back when they're ready and healthy, but because of that, could it be that Emmett's stock just doesn't drop as much if the UFC feels like they're in agreement that that was a foul at any point?
Well, let me tell you this
the elbow to the back of the head or the knees.
It took the UFC a little bit longer, I felt like, than normal to announce what the bonuses were on Saturday night. If Dana is not on site, usually the process for that is Dana is sitting with, texting back and forth with Sean Shelby and McMaynard, anybody else that's in that discussion, and they're trying to figure out who the bonuses are, and then those get relayed to the PR staff, and then the PR staff either lets us know in the media room or puts out a little email release about it, or both. It took longer than normal for that to happen on Saturday night, I felt like. And when we found out that Stevens was one of the $50,000 bonus winners, to me that said, well, Dana and those guys don't feel like there was a foul. They don't. If they felt like something, if they felt like that was dirty and that was a foul, and that there was any chance at all that Emmett should have a case to have that be overturned, do you think they would give Stevens $50,000? There were definitely other finishes on that card that they could have given that money to. They could have given it to Sam Alvey. He was a pretty big underdog against the guy who had 400 something karate wins. Marion Renault submitting Sarah McMahon was possibly worthy of $50,000.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. Yaya's submission was fantastic. It took him a little bit, but I mean, the storyline alone behind that was his mother passing away 10 days earlier. It might have been worth $50,000. So the fact that they gave it to Jeremy Stevens said to me, maybe this is much ado about nothing, at least in terms of the discussion that's being had privately at the highest levels of the UFC brass there.
Matt Erickson joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio. He was covering the event for MMA Junkie. Since we threw out the bonuses, Joban and Saunders did get fight of the night. Stevens and Latifi got performances of the night. Attendance was 10,124. Total gate 1,064,303 with 50 cents. Goes, what do you have for Matt?
Matt, let's go over to the co-main event, which I want to say, is this the fight that Matt picked against everyone else? Where he had Tisha Torres?
John and I were the only two that picked Tisha, so John Morgan and I definitely were against the grain on that one.
Well, but
the one that I picked against everybody else was Max Griffin. So.
That's right.
Good call.
Early on, it was looking. I thought it was looking pretty well for Tisha Torres. I thought she was doing the right things. She just doesn't seem to have that power to floor her opponent. But I thought she was connecting. She was doing all the right things. Matt, what did you feel having picked her? Like, what did you feel of her performance early on? And do you think, is this loss going to set her back very far?
I thought she looked great in the first round. And obviously, if you look at both of them at the end of the fight, Jessica was bruised up a little bit and her face was a little swollen up, so she was obviously touching her up. But once Jessica was able to finally start catching up to her consistently, I mean, those takedowns were money in the bank, and obviously that's what she was counting on to be able to win the fight, and it played out perfectly for her. If Tisha's just able to avoid a few of those takedowns, I think maybe it's a different fight. And yeah, I think there is something to the power, but it's funny because when we watched her at the open workouts on Wednesday, Raquel Pennington, Tisha's fiance, remarked to their coach that she didn't feel like she'd ever felt Tisha this strong ever before. So I kind of went into that fight thinking, maybe Tisha's going to be stronger against Jessica than Jessica's potentially planning on. But Jessica looked great. Obviously, those takedowns were huge.
This fight card was a lot of fun, I think, for a lot of viewers watching it. But there were a lot of storylines I felt like that were coming out of this card. Can you name maybe one fighter that you feel like took a big leap in where they're at in the UFC now because of this card?
Max Griffin. It's crazy. He was 1-2 in the UFC before this. He had a great fight the time out before this against Dos Santos, but it was a fight of the night winner. But he obviously didn't get the win. But he's not really that big of a known commodity, right? And he's fighting Mike Perry, who can talk the talk, and when he wins was at least walking the walk, and what he did to Jake Ellenberger still gives me nightmares. So the dude obviously has power. He's got to fight him in his backyard. And when we talked to him on Thursday, and again, huge underdog. He's the biggest underdog on the whole card. Perry was close to 4-1, I think, as a favorite. And Max Griffin dresses up in a cool suit. He looks cool. He talks cool. He's confident but not cocky. He just seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he basically said, look, man, you guys might not know me. People might not know me. I hit just as hard as this guy, and you guys are going to see it. And all of this guy's bravado and his big talk is because he's fearful. There was something about what he was saying to us that convinced me, and you guys saw it in the email thread last week. I changed my pick from Perry to Max Griffin. I'm like, you know what? This guy, when he said it, I believed him. People say stuff every single fight week, and they say what I think that they think you want to hear and what the headline should be. But when he said it, I actually believed him.
Matt, congrats on that pick, by the way, and yeah, you could see how a fighter could sway someone like that, and when the decision was announced, Perry certainly stormed off and seemed upset. Now, leading into that, I guess what I want to ask is, did you maybe notice, any fighters after the fight? I was going to ask about Barao, because I think of all the fighters who kind of lost or crushing defeats, or so to speak, as far as those storylines, I feel like Barao maybe speaks loudest in that category when you kind of look at his I don't want to say fall from grace disrespectfully, but you look at where he was and just kind of the look on his face from us watching at home, almost just see this dejection kind of reappear on his face in these performances. Did you notice anything leading into fight week, and anything maybe did you catch him after the fight at all, Barao?
The only time I saw Barao leading into fight week was coming down the elevator to make weight. I had left from the official weigh-ins to use the facilities myself. When I came back, he was walking back to the commission, coming down the elevator. To be honest with you, he looked a little bit out of it and drained, but that's not necessarily a rare thing. And it doesn't mean that he necessarily had any worse of a weight cut than ever before, but given his issues that he had previously, it did make me wonder. But that was the only time that I saw him during fight week leading up to the fight. Yeah, afterward, when you got a guy who wins 32 or 33 fights in a row, and is the champion, and looks like he's just this dominant thing until that first Dillashaw fight. And now he's lost 5 out of 7. That's crazy. And yeah, fall from grace is exactly the word the term that you have to use to describe that, when your only wins are Philippe Nova and Mitch Ganon, I think.
Yep.
And you're losing to everybody else. That's rough. And if there was, a Renan Barao era, it'd be easy for somebody to say the Renan Barao era is done.
Yeah, well, on the brighter side, I guess, my last question for you, Matt, is there's a lot of talk and, kind of the narrative just in general with these, big UFC runs and where the company's at and this year, how important it is. I feel like there's a lot of criticism maybe on this card, the headliner, the strength, so forth. But when you look at the results, I don't know, from a viewer at home, I felt that it delivered, but what was your feel from inside the arena and your feel on the card?
My favorite thing about cards like this is when people are bagging on them, saying, this card's I'm not going to watch. There's not enough big names on the card. All the ones that seem to go under the radar and not be talked about as much are the ones that sneak up on you, and you wish later on, holy crap, man, why was I not watching that? That was a great show. And in fact, I talked to one of the Fox executives, one of the Fox Sports executives about it on Friday. I said the same thing to him. Just when people think that it's not that great of a fight card, it turns out to be awesome. And this one was. We had like 7 finishes, and there were a few kind of ho-hum decisions, but you're going to have those on every card. I thought it was a fantastic show. The attendance numbers, there's nothing you can do about the attendance numbers. There's no way that you can get around those. The first 2 shows that they did in Orlando were 14,000 plus. This is down to like 10,000 something. Okay, I mean, it was down, and those other 2 ones were Fox shows as well. So that one's rough, but I'm gonna hope that they don't care as much about that as they would care about what the ratings do, and so it'll be interesting to see what the ratings were for this one. The results were there.
Time as always.
Marco from Hueco, ¿qué pasa, dudes?
¿Qué pasa, man?
Let's break down this weekend real quick. So we got a Ronda Rousey sighting yesterday on WWE.
Yeah.
Really don't care. They don't care. Stevens, yeah, the knee, the elbows are questionable. But like I said, when the freaking umpire doesn't call a freaking strike, they call it a ball. Same deal. If the referee didn't call it, it is what it is. Sorry, goes. Andrade is a tank. Very disappoint me. Freaking Sam Alvey loved the post-fight speech. Jovan posted Ivan Sanders, but him and Barral, man, is he a shot fighter, dude? Because ever since the beatdown, the 2 Dillashaw beatdowns, and I guess all the Nuevo Uñao wars, the game wars, this guy is not the same, man. I mean, Brian Kelleher, I didn't know who Brian Kelleher was until Saturday. Put a beatdown on him in the 3rd round, dude. And that's my question for you guys. Is Kenan Barral a chop fighter? Peace out.
See you, bud. Hold on a second. Brian from Boston, what's up, man?
Hey, gents. A couple thoughts. I'm not a huge fan of the state of Florida in general because of all the shenanigans down there. But I thought that crowd was great. It may not have been sold out, but I thought they were into it. I thought they were vocal. That stuck out to me. Secondly, I think we can debate the Stevens thing back and forth all day. There's some of us that can say it didn't affect it, and some of us that can say it will affect it. But what I noticed from that kid is, man, he was in killer mode when he had that kid hurt.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I'd like to say before I squish up against the break is, I think we should put Stevens in the title talk picture. One, you can almost give him a lifetime achievement award. He's been in the UFC forever. He's fought everybody that they put in front of him. In this little run that he's been on, I think one of you guys had mentioned it was Waller-esque, which I think is a fantastic description. So depending on how Edgar Ortega turns out, I think you need to look at, Max, Triangle City, Edgar, or Stevens for the next title shot. What do you guys think?
Or Elkins, he's 6-0, right? I think in his last 6. He has lost to Stevens once. So it would be a rematch for him, but it has the Team Alpha Male versus Team Alliance flair. So it's another check mark there. You would think Elkins would be pretty vocal. And he has to hurry up because Mendez comes off suspension in April. And he's always been a high-ranked featherweight, so he'll always get big matches. So he just needs to get on that right away. And what I would do is say, give me Stevens on the same card of when Max Holloway defends against the winner of Ortega and Edgar. That way, we have protection for the main event, and you're always on the timeline of the champion. Thanks, Brian, for the call. We are up against the break. And Marco from Waco, when we come back, we will give our opinions on Barral. It's a good question, actually. Is Barral shot? Renan Barral, former UFC bantamweight champion. Things haven't gone his way as of late. I actually thought he fought pretty well, and I don't want to take anything away from Kelleher. I think he just fought really good, and he's tough. So, yeah, we'll jump more into this when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Get the radio channel numbers for NBA, NHL, and college basketball games sent directly to your smart device. Go to SiriusXM.com/now/sports now, and then add, click, then click add to calendar. You'll even get links to listen directly on the SiriusXM app. Goes, is Renan Barão a shot fighter?
I don't want to use that word. He's definitely different, but he's still dangerous. And I don't think that a shot fighter, if you're a shot fighter, I think you just stop being dangerous. And that's not the case. I thought he looked pretty decent.
Yeah.
It just wasn't his night. But I think one factor that a lot of people don't take into consideration is, I'll go to Mike Tyson. There's something about when he finally got beat that mystique kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people feared for a long time, was just, it's impossible to beat that guy. And I think Renan Barão had that and lost that, and I think fighters have more confidence now when they fight him.
Kelleher's 19-8 overall, but he's 8-1 in the last 3 years. He's also 3-1 in the UFC. I think he's actually just a good fighter. A good fighter beat another good fighter. The good fighter that he beat used to be a great fighter because he was a world champion who had only lost one time out of his last 30-some fights. And so, yeah, he has fallen off that pedestal, but I don't think he's a shot fighter. I think you worded it perfectly. He's still dangerous. He's still a tough out for anybody else.
I don't like to use the word term shot fighter, but I also feel it's important to kind of be honest. And if Barão is not, I'm trying to have trouble thinking of who may be more other than my own beloved, BJ Penn, who I'm as well a big fan, have much respect for. But even though Barão still can throw back, it looks like we just threw him into a thing of water because he's just not moving the same. If we were to look at the old Barão before, the snap on his punches, even when things are going his way, even in the first minute, 15? It's tough.
All right, there you have it. We answered your question, Marco. When we come back, we'll talk to our former intern, Jason Buckamer, about Ronda Rousey and her performance at WWE last night. Stay close. We'll be right back.
a man, and a man's gotta learn to take it. Try to believe, though the going gets rough, that you're gonna hang tough to make it. History repeats itself, try and you succeed. Never doubt that you're the one, and you can have your dreams. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Right to the end, 'cause your life would depend on the strength that you have inside you. Oh, gotta be proud, stepping out of the cloud when the odds of the game defy you. Try your best to win them all, and one day time will tell. When you're the one that's standing there, you've reached the final bell. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down.
All right, here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We are going to talk a little bit about Ronda Rousey. Last night was WWE. They had a pay-per-view. What was it called? Something Chamber?
Elimination
Chamber. And all this leads up to WrestleMania. It's coming up.
I don't even know what Elimination Chamber is.
I've never heard of it either.
I know it's been around a while, but I don't know what the rules are. Going back to last week when we were talking about NXT, we just had a lot of questions. So we figured our former intern, he loves this stuff.
He loves it, yeah. Ronda Rousey, this was, I guess, her first time coming out and being more of a performer rather than an announcement. She has signed a multi-year deal with the WWE, so she's pretty much all in. And let's talk about that with Jason Buckamer. What's up, Jason? How you doing?
I'm good, guys. What about you?
Good, thank you. How you been, bud?
That's good. I've been good, actually. It's funny we're talking about Elimination Chamber because last Friday they actually came here, the Raw superstars that were in Las Vegas last night, and they came here on Friday, so me and a bunch of buddies, we saw them front row, so it was a good time. But, yeah, Elimination Chamber was good. I don't know if you guys got a chance to check it out. It was in your hometown, but so far so good. I thought.
They were giving out free tickets, you know that?
Free tickets?
Yeah.
How were they giving out free tickets? It didn't sell well?
No, it did not.
Okay, I will tell you this. Jason just said front row, and I heard Daniel Cormier was there front row. If the ticket isn't much, the next time I go, I will go. I'd love to go front row, and I'll pay for it. I mean, as long as if you tell me it's $1,500, I'm not going to do it. If it's a couple hundred or whatever, I will do it. But then I'll be good for a long time. But that's kind of where I sit with it.
Hal gave us tickets to a basketball game here one time. That's probably the closest I've ever sat to front row in any sporting event.
Bitch, you better go somewhere. Didn't I take your ass to Terry Funk and Tito Santana?
Oh, we were up top at the Anaheim Convention Center.
No, at Benjamin. Don't you remember we had, like, awesome seats? He even, like, finagled it. I actually have to give him the props.
I'm fairly certain that was up top. It was a great seat.
Well, then it was another card, but regardless, I just know that we were right there.
I've never been.
Maybe you didn't go that day, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
How did I not take you there? I took you everywhere. Huh. That's weird. Jason, how did Ronda do? I've been hearing anywhere from great to average to... and some people are just breaking it up into mic time wasn't good, physical performance was really good.
I guess it's just how you look at it, Gigi. I mean, some people coming in, obviously there's going to be people, I think why she gets some hate coming in, I think a lot of people thought, well, Ronda's going to come in, she's this big star from MMA, she's coming over to WWE. WWE is doing a good job of hyping her up, making it seem like this is the biggest signing in the history of their company, Ronda coming over. And I think a lot of people, fans, I've been watching other women maybe trying to make a run for the title throughout the year because WrestleMania is kind of known as the end of the year, and then as soon as WrestleMania happens, the next day in Monday Night Raw is considered the new calendar year in wrestling. So I think a lot of people were worried that maybe Ronda might, jump the line and get ahead of a lot of people. But to her credit, she came out, she said she didn't want any special treatment, and she had a lot of emotion, especially because when they introduced her, like you guys mentioned when Dave was on the show last Friday, she holds Rowdy Ronda Rousey for Roddy Piper. She has the jacket. So there's a lot of emotion as well. And for me, I wasn't too sure how I was going to take it. I was watching TV at home with my brother, and just the emotion and how she didn't want any special treatment, I think won me over, because then it goes, okay, you know what? She's serious about this. She's going to lace up the boots. She's going to, work hard for this, and she's actually wants to be a wrestler, not kind of a Hollywood star that wants to come in WWE. So I think she did a good job of winning the fans over. When it comes to the mic work, though, there was a lot of boo birds in the house, so they were booing her like crazy, and she didn't seem 100% comfortable, because the thing you got to realize with wrestling is it's scripted, it's acting. You have to go along and play with the storyline. When she was in MMA, it was real beef. When her and Misha Tate, they did not like each other, so she could think of things faster. But when you have to follow a storyline and say certain things, certain way, it makes it a little harder. So mic work was a little bit questionable.
But what's the storyline though? What is the storyline she has to follow? I mean, she's just going to be basically wrestling a bunch of people. Hey, I'm going to whoop your ass. I mean, isn't it boiled down to the same thing, except the outcome is already predetermined?
Well, the thing is, a couple years ago at WrestleMania, back when it was in Southern California there at Levi's Field, home of your 49ers, she was sitting front row with the four horsewomen of MMA, big wrestling fans, as you know, and she had a little segment where Triple H and Stephanie McMahon came out, and they're the heels, they're the bad guys, so they came out and told everybody in the stadium, we own you, you guys had the largest attendance, but it's all because of us you're here. And then The Rock came out to face off against Triple H. Stephanie McMahon slapped The Rock. Well, The Rock can't put his hands on a woman, so over came Ronda Rousey from the front row, and they had a little bit of a segment where Ronda threw Stephanie McMahon and Triple H with a toss, and that kind of set things up. So that's been kind of milking for a few years, and everybody's kind of been going, hey, if she does come back to WWE, she kind of does have the history with Triple H and Stephanie. So last night at the Elimination Chamber, they kind of played off that, where Kurt Angle, who you met GG that one time when I was back down in Vegas when he was in Mandalay Bay, he kind of set up the storyline saying, now Triple H and Stephanie say, hey, now we own Ronda Rousey. She's working for us now. She has to do what we say, kind of thing. And that's kind of the storyline where they're going with that.
Okay.
So they're kind of playing what happened a few years ago. So she kind of has to follow the storyline where she's very respectful. But if someone messes with her like they did last night, she's ready to kick them out.
Okay, I thought you meant she came out as a character, like the butcher with a butcher knife or something like that, or the Wonder Woman or something.
No,
there was no outfit to her. She's Ronda Rousey. They're just basically playing off. She's going to go up against the management, kind of like we've seen for many years. Okay, guys, did we expect her to have? Has every great wrestler ever come out and just been great on the mic from day one? I mean, doesn't everyone stumble out of the gate a little bit and then become great at it, or have there been some people from day one that have just been geniuses?
You mean people from other sports coming into pro wrestling?
No, like the Shawn Michaels, the Dusty Rhodes.
Because like Mr. T, I thought was awesome when he
from day one.
Day one, yeah, WrestleMania, all that stuff. I thought he did great from the get-go, but he's also an actor.
I thought Ronda was a great talker in MMA, so I thought she should just transition pretty smoothly. I mean, it is live in a different setting, and yeah, if the fans are booing, but I always thought the fans just didn't give you much, and you have to earn it over time. So to get booed on day one or to not feel comfortable on day one, I never used to see it as a big L in the loss column.
Well, everybody gets their bill, kind of like what we were talking with LeGrec on Friday. There's always a bill. Even Goldberg, who his shtick was something that people think Ronda should have done, where you're just the silent type. You just go in there and take care of business. Even with that model, Bill Goldberg was still afforded a build, and that was kind of the interesting thing with this. And I agree with what Jason is saying. I think it's an aspect that especially as outsiders from professional wrestling, which you can't expect people to know, but I think that's an underrated aspect where everybody's worried about the pro wrestling. I was more worried about this acting thing, to be honest. Answering your question, Gigi, where I don't think you can expect an answer to your question for a wrestler to go on, and perhaps Jason will know much better than me. But that was my worry about Ronda Rousey as far as the acting side goes, because you need to be able to sell it. I mean, we talk about it here all the time. When guys try to do what we say and create drama and interest in their fight, but when they come off at it wrong, us, the fans, everybody's the first to call them out and be like, "Oh, that's fake. I don't like that," and because we have a BS censor, right? So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and with talking, you guys were talking a little bit about it on Friday, NXT, and that's The WWE Performance Center in NXT is a show that's on their network, and it's where guys either come from independent promotions or across the seas, and they learn the WWE way. So, yeah, they get big, strong, they look good, but they also teach them about mic work. They also teach them about if the crowd does this, how are you going to react? If the crowd boos you, cheers you, starts chanting and starts heckling you, what are you going to do? And I think Ronda's coming in where she's been in the ring training, headlocks, suplexes, all this, but I don't think she's really learned enough to learn mic work and acting and how to deal with those type of situations, where a lot of people spend 2 to 3 years at the Performance Center where they have wrestlers, legends of wrestlers, teaching them, hey, if you're in this situation, this is what you got to do to keep your character, get some heel heat on you, or, get the fans turned because you're a face. These are the things you have to do. And I think she struggled with that a bit. But overall, guys, I think she's serious about this. And over time, she'll get the mic work down pat. She'll get better at that. And, of course, she's athletic, and she's been a fan of wrestling, so she'll learn the in-ring work pretty fine. But the mic work's got to pick it up. I don't have too much of looking in the future, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. She'll pick it up and she'll work on it. And, of course, the wrestlers already in the locker room will give her pointers and tips on that. So, but I got a question for you guys. I know wrestling fan. I have buddies that are huge wrestling fans. And you guys, you said, not the biggest wrestling fans, but just overall, Ronda Rousey, WrestleMania is kind of a thing that people watch even if you're not a wrestling fan. Hey, WrestleMania is on, let's catch it. Are you guys intrigued at all of seeing how she does on the WrestleMania stage? It looks like she might be in a mixed tag team match against Triple H and Stephanie. We don't know who her tag team partner is, but are you guys going to check it out? Interested in that at all?
I think I would check it out just because it's WrestleMania. George, a couple years ago, just out of the blue, one day just said, I'm going to get WrestleMania today. And I remember at the end thinking, that was cool that he did that because it was entertaining.
See, I didn't think it was that entertaining. I thought it was okay. I mean, I was glad I did it. I wasn't like, oh my God, the $50 or whatever it cost. Dude, WrestleMania is, I don't know, man. Wrestling was just different. I hate to play back in my day, but the ladders and tables and chairs and the head shot. I don't know. It was like way more violent, and now everything's like fine tooth and comb, and everyone knows the results, and everyone's on the net, everyone's predicting storylines, and everyone's got an opinion. It just fucking drives me nuts. So I file it one level above. I don't give a fuck, but I do believe Ronda will be successful at it because I know successful people when I see it, and I think she'll apply herself. I think she's very smart, very articulate. She'll figure it out. Helps that she's a fan. Helps that she's still, in great shape and has those fibers and those muscles that she can take bumps and deliver bumps, and she's powerful, So I think she'll do good at it. But yeah, if Go says I ordered it, I'll probably sit down and watch it. But I'm just not I'm not feeling that level of entertainment that I get from other things. I guess I'll just do it because I don't have nothing better to do.
I guess I'll file it under anything past the number 6 on a fast food menu. Yeah, might be entertaining, but if I don't try you, I don't really care.
Well, here's my loaded answer, but before I say it, I just want to shout out Overhand Right Radio, Jason's podcast, man. I enjoy it. Keep hammering away those episodes, Jason. But I guess my question, or my answer is just, I am intrigued by I guess all definitions, except for if am I going to pay for it by myself and go out of my way? No. If I've got nothing going on, someone invites me over, or it's on the TV, hell yeah, I'm intrigued. I'll see how she does. If that makes sense.
Jason, let me ask you something. I know there's not too many examples of this, but does what happens in the real world ever translate over into the WWE world? In other words, would any wrestler at any time bring up perhaps her last 2 losses or anything that happened in her MMA career? Does that ever happen? Like when Brock Lesnar came back, did anybody ever reference his MMA career?
Not really Brock, because WWE was trying to get him over as, this unbeatable force, especially when he broke the Undertaker streak. But it was kind of funny when Stephanie was cutting a promo yesterday, following the storyline like I was talking about, Kurt Angle kind of said, like, oh, Stephanie, didn't you say that Ronda's the has-been after her losses and stuff like that? So they kind of played off it, but it's never been anything like that when it comes to MMA. I mean, one time when John Cena and The Rock were promoting, The Rock had his promo written down on his wrist, and Cena pointed it out, and those guys can then were known to bump heads and kind of have real beef, real heat, I should say. So it kind of like that, but usually there's kind of lines in wrestling that you don't cross a little.
The Rock did that? Really?
Yeah, it seems like
they wrote a script on his wrist?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's dumb. I thought it was all natural. Like I've always respected them because you just think that they're thinking of these things when it occurs, But okay, I want to ask a question, and then I'll back off if you guys want to fire off whatever. And the reason I'm buying time is because I forgot the question. I had it a second ago, and now I don't.
Life's crazy like that.
Yeah. But how about ice cream? Ice cream's crazy too, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I can ask a question if it jogs your memory. I think I haven't tuned into pro wrestling in a while, but I remember a big thing, especially like friends that would go to shows, where it's getting your sign. And I remember my buddy had a sign that caught trend called like "Waste of Life," and like people started doing "Waste of Life" trends and getting camera time with it for like WWF Raw shows. Like this is in the '90s. Like, is there an arms race going on right now for who can have the most funny / offensive Ronda signboard that people are trying to get on air? Or and does WWE still do that kind of thing? Like placate to the fans that way and encourage that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to maybe offensive stuff, they have lookout guys, I think, that go around. And in the past, people that have some signs have been known maybe to get their sign ripped up, or if they refuse to rip it up, maybe get tossed out of the arena. So there has been stuff like that. When it comes to anything with Ronda, I didn't see anything yesterday. I mean, just the boos, right? Just fans booing, showing that they might not be the biggest Ronda coming over to WWE fan. But as far as signs like that, nothing. And there's no really trends going on right now. There's always be the Stone Cold what chance, Daniel Bryan's yes chance, stuff like that. But to answer your question, Dan Tom, nothing too offensive towards Ronda. Just a couple of boo birds in the house.
I'll start going to shows.
I just remember my question, and then you can take it from here. One thing I saw was everybody kept saying, because she struggled on the mic, hey, it's time for her to get Paul Heyman. And I'm like, damn, like, it's not like Ronda's terrible at smack talk. I think she's done very well in mixed martial arts. I thought it was jumping the gun. How about you guys? I mean, just off day one, oh, you suck. Get Paul Heyman to say everything you got to say. Are you guys into that, or wouldn't you rather have Ronda, like, do what she does? I always thought a press conference with Ronda was interesting because she knew how to talk up a fight.
I think.
Why would you want to take that away?
I think it's jumping the gun, but I don't see it being that much different than if you're a 49er fan and you have the first pick in the draft and you get a quarterback and he starts day one and he looks like crap day one. Yeah, it's his first game, but you kind of want to see him jump out of the gate and show you something, right? Maybe it's something like that.
I think in theory it is jumping the gun, but kind of back to our other conversation as far as hitting the fast forward button and looking at previous examples in wrestling. I think you need that kind of a tool of a Paul Heyman, a mouthpiece, if you will, for what we're asking Ron to do. Because again, not just the Goldberg example. Let's look at the best trash talker. Goldberg wasn't a talker, but let's look at the best trash talker in the golden era of it all. One of the best, at least. The Rock you probably would put up there, but Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the best money makers, right? And maybe it was the Steve Weisers he was drinking that helped give him the liquid courage on the mic. But you go back to the WCW and when he was stunning Steve Austin before he was a different character, right? It's completely different. Not that he was bad, but you're just like, who is this Joker? So again, if you look at so I guess what I'm saying is here, if you look at the best guys in wrestling and even you look at their humble beginnings, it was a rough start, right? So now we're going to expect, and this is in defense of Ronda, and now we're going to expect her to do all this stuff. So if we are going to do it and the wheel's already in motion, in that case, I actually don't mind the Paul Heyman move. I think it's a useful tool.
I think so, too. Jason, let me...
Well, wait a minute. I asked Jason the question.
Yeah, Jason.
And you guys answered.
Well,
let him answer.
Jason, I want to hear your answer to this. Go ahead, Jason. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Heyman can talk up anybody. I mean, he could probably talk up a blow-up doll in the middle of the ring. Yeah, but it's the thing with, they want her to be a face, right? And Paul Heyman usually comes in there and he hypes up the heels, right? Brock's a heel, so he does a good job of that. He's known as like the bad guy manager. People just love him because he catches everybody's ear when he's on the mic, and he's great at talking. He's made a fabulous career out of it. But I would say wait a little bit. I mean, just give her maybe a month at least, or give her to Mania, follow the storyline, then after, if it's really like cringy, I don't think it's going to get that bad. But if it really gets bad, then maybe you turn her to a heel and maybe get Paul Heyman to endorse her, and then Paul can do the majority of the talking, and Ronda can kind of come on when need be and stuff. But I say wait a little bit. She's going to get better. I think people are just jumping the gun because she's such a polarizing figure, and they want her to be great right off the bat. Well, it's not going to work like that. Give her a little bit of time, and she'll be fine. But I think after maybe down the road, maybe she might be good with Paul Heyman just from that endorsing factor. And some fans, wrestling fans can be fickle at times, so maybe if you just align her with Paul Heyman, maybe the boos will stop and the cheers will start. I don't know, but I say give her some time.
That's a perfect setup to what I wanted to ask you, Jason. The fans. In mixed martial arts, she's never really been much about taking criticism from her peers or the fans or the media. In pro wrestling, you have to play to those fans. Their opinions really matter. Do you think she'll be able to go on forums or listen to radio shows or media or whatever WWE has and hear these reactions and play off of them? Or do you think her psyche is still somewhat fragile for something like that?
That's an interesting question, and I think really only she knows. Only she knows if she can get in there and deal with the boos, deal with turning on, radio shows and podcasts and forums and blogs and all this, and hear people go, wow, she was abysmal on the mic, or anything bad they might say. I think she's over that. She has thick skin. I think it was maybe nerves last night because, it's a different spotlight than, a press conference at MMA and stuff. It's just different, right? It's kind of the same, but it's different. Like I said, in MMA, the beefs are real. You got to go with the script and a storyline over here. And especially at a press conference with media, they're not booing you, right? They're sitting there listening to you and hearing your thoughts. But, I think she's got to have thick skin coming in this business. People will tell you you're the greatest thing alive, and then some fans will tell you they're terrible, and if you get released tomorrow, they're okay with that. To bring up another example, I know we've been talking about him a lot, but The Rock came in as a face. People were chanting, "Die, Rocky, die." They did not like him, and he kind of listened to that and said, played off it, became the character that we know The Rock with the, on the mic work, great at talking trash and all that, and he used that to his advantage. So I think Ronda, listen to those, but take it with a grain of salt. Take the things that people are saying negative about you and turn them into positives. If people don't like something, and like I said, if it was a heel, it would be easier because if people didn't like something, you could turn it against them and use it. But she's a face, but maybe she could use what they're saying negatively and work on it because, opinions are good even if they're bad. You can always work on stuff, and she's at that stage of, trying to be the best character and the best WWE superstar, not MMA superstar, but WWE superstar she can be. So I think she's got to listen to those opinions, but take it with a grain of salt and just keep that confidence high, and she'll be fine.
As long as the trajectory is always going up and it culminates in her being a champ, I think she's in. But if she's one of those that has to take a fall, and then go up and then take another fall, and too much time goes by without her being at the top of it all, I could see her possibly losing interest. I don't know what these last 2 years have been like, but she did develop an ego, and I don't think you can in that business. I listened to Busted Open on the way in, and one of the guys, Dave, has a real big problem the way they cater to Roman Reigns. Bully's trying to explain to him, well, the WWE looks at their metrics, that's the hot ticket, that's who they're going with, but that Braun Strowman, is that his name, Jason?
That's a hot
Braun
name.
Strowman,
yeah. That's who Dave's saying, why isn't this guy got a bigger role in the upcoming WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know if it can culminate with Ronda being a champion this soon at WrestleMania in a few months, and can she wait out a whole other year until, because that's what she wants, I believe, big stage, world title, who knows. Here I am caring all of a sudden again about this. But what's new with you, Jason? How's everything going in your neck of the woods? Are you loving the podcast world? You're about half a year in, maybe, right?
Me and my brother Cole, we kicked it off in July, so it's been good so far. Getting better at it. And Overhand Right Radio, we've actually got an episode coming out tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about Brock and the UFC. Dana posted that picture, so we'll be talking about that. But so far, so good. And Dan, Tom, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the love from all you guys. So Overhand Right Radio, we're on everywhere. There's so many places to listen to the podcast. So wherever you listen, we're up there. So it's been good so far, though. I appreciate the love, guys.
Wait, do you talk pro wrestling and MMA equally, or one over the other?
We're MMA podcast, but we're big wrestling fans, so it might sneak in there. We might talk about some football too. Like this, we talked about the Super Bowl, I think, for 15, and we're like, whoa, okay, boys, we're an MMA podcast, but so we're big sports fans, but we're an MMA podcast, so we like to kind of keep it there for the majority of the podcast.
Right on, my man. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Great talking to you.
Okay, thanks, guys. And hey, if you need a WrestleMania party, take a flight up to Vancouver. Come join me.
All right, you got it. We'll see you.
Okay, take care, guys.
Easy.
WrestleMania.
I wish I was a dork so I could take him up on that offer.
Do you smell onions galore right now?
Yeah, I think it's garlic.
Garlic?
I was smelling bad, like chili cafeteria,
onions,
chili
isn't
cheese
it?
food.
Dude, I thought it smelled delicious.
Yeah, it smells like
powerful.
Like bad food that tastes good.
We
That's
gotta
what it
take.
smelled.
We gotta take this break. When we come back, we'll talk to UFC's former middleweight champion, Chris Weidman. Stay close, and we'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Russian 83.
Can you please tap that rather large fellow on the shoulder and tell him it's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes? Thank you.
Celebrate the start of spring training baseball games today on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Listen for live reports from spring training and hear news from the fantasy baseball perspective. Get the edge over your fantasy baseball competition with SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius 210, XM87, and on the SiriusXM app. All right, our next guest is a former champion in the Ultimate Fighting Championship in the middleweight division. He not only won the world title, he defended it 3 times. He has a record of 14-3 overall. His last win is over Kelvin Gastelum. Took place in July of 2017. He's now awaiting his next fight booking, and he joins us now on the hotline. It's Chris Weidman. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Good, man. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Chris, I'm just going to jump right into it, man. When Jacare and Kelvin Gastelum was announced, the first thing I thought of is, what does Chris Weidman think of that?
Yeah, no, I kind of thought that might be happening because they asked me if I was going to be ready for the Jacare fight, and then I went to the doctors and stuff, and I found out I wasn't going to be ready. I couldn't give them a timeline. So obviously they got to go ahead and do what they got to do. So. Okay, and when do you think you can be ready to take a fight booking, go through a camp, and be ready to fight? I'm hoping in the next 6 weeks my hand starts turning around, and then get a couple training sessions in, get confidence in it that I can use it, and then get something booked, Or I would hope, man, something in the early summer. But the injury I had is pretty serious. The surgery, it's like almost like doing the ACL of the hand. They're restructuring a ligament. They're taking that in my wrist to create a new ligament in the base of my thumb, and hands do. They take a little time to heal. Right. So it's not the quickest body part to get a surgery on that would heal quick. So it's taking time. Robert Whitaker was telling Yo Romero today on Twitter, hey, how about June at the UFC pay-per-view in Chicago? I've always told contenders it makes sense to fight on the same card as the champion because you can step in if something goes wrong with the main event, and at the same time, if everybody comes out of there healthy, you're on the same timeline as the champ. You think you could make it by June for Chicago? And if so, with the landscape, with who's left, who do you think would make sense for you? I don't know. I mean, I would love to be ready for that fight card, and I'd get a fight in there. I mean, honestly, I thought Jacare was going to be the one I'd be fighting, but my hand is just taking longer than I wanted it to be. I thought Jacare would be a great fight for a number 1 contendership. And now that I wasn't able to take that fight, in the timeline that they wanted, I couldn't commit to it. I don't know. I don't know what's next. I really don't know who I'd be fighting. Obviously I just want to get back to that title fight, and whoever I got to fight to get there, I'm willing to do. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know. Also, the other day you celebrated, I guess it was 9 years from your first fight, which was at one of the 2 promotions you've ever fought at, Ring of Combat, and then after that you went to the UFC. Do you remember that fight with Ruben Lopez at all? It ended quickly, submission round 1. But anything stand out to you about your first fight? I've always gotten a kick out of asking people about their first fight, their memories. I just remember, obviously, it meant the world to me. It was my first fight ever. There was a lot of hype behind me, honestly, going into my first one, so I felt like there was a lot of pressure. But I was dulling it down to just almost being like another wrestling match, and as much as the fight was different, I just tried to make it as if it was another competition. So I think I did a good job of doing that. But I remember, I didn't have my whole family behind me as far as doing mixed martial arts, and them kind of thinking it's a violent sport. And I was trying to prove to them that, it's not that violent. It's just competition. It's kind of like wrestling. So I just remember actually when I went to that fight, I really didn't want to make him bleed or anything like that. I didn't want to punch him too much. I wanted to be as clean as possible. I just wanted to take him down and submit him. Mm-hmm. Really, in the back of my head, I wanted to make it as non-violent as possible. So my parents and everybody would and you know, my family would be, oh, it's actually not a bad sport, you know. And so that's just like a weird thing that was going on in the back of my head during that fight.
Yeah, so no Frank Mir, no Guerra moments where you're just completely breaking his shoulder off or nothing.
Well, I actually did mess up his shoulder, supposedly. I did, you know, I was in the moment, and submissions are fair game in my head. They weren't as, you know, I didn't want the bloody thing is what I was scared of, would, you know, scare off my family and my friends that, like, you know, kind of on the fence of me doing this, you know, and my wife. So, yeah,
Do you remember what your body felt like to go through a camp before that fight versus now, 9 years later, what your body feels like now?
Oh, man. I remember I worked my ass off. I was in such good shape for that fight. I didn't know what to expect going into my first fight ever. So I just remember we did a lot of circuit training, and I remember breaking a lot of records on the Versa Climber. I broke a lot of gym records during my first training camp for my first fight. You gotta remember also, it was I trained for 6 months and then had my first fight. So I was like very new in there, and I was just kind of developing the mindset of working really hard, and I was just trying to compete against everybody in the gym and beat everybody at everything. And I remember like the Versa Climber workouts was the big thing, and seeing how many steps you could get in like a 5-minute period, and I beast moded it all. I crushed everybody.
Do you remember what you got paid for that fight?
I think I made like, I don't know, $500 to $700, and then I got a percentage on my ticket sales. And I sold T-shirts, you know, and so I basically went around in my car and went to all my high school friends and that, and I was selling tickets and selling T-shirts, trying to make, you know, I felt like a drug dealer. So yeah, I made like, after all said and done, was like $2,000, but
wow,
that was a lot of money for me at the time.
Right.
So I was like, I felt rich. I felt I was good.
Now Chris can do an autograph signing or an appearance and make way more than what he did in his first actual fight. And it's funny how the economics of these fighters, you know, how it works out for them. This is Chris Weidman, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio, former UFC middleweight champion, recovering from a hand injury, looking to give maybe a fight booking in the summer. All right, our co-host here goes. What do you have for Chris Weidman?
Well, I want to go back to a couple things that George brought up in the interview, and one is your body. Aside from injuries, where do you feel like how is your body responding? And we hear a lot of fighters talk about their prime. Do you feel like you're right in the middle of that right now?
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm still in my prime. I feel amazing right now, other than my freaking hand. Honestly, I'm really frustrated and pissed off about how this whole thing went down my hand, how long it's taken. It's really pissing me off. I'm trying to stay positive, but like, I feel great. I'm still working out. I've been traveling, working out. I've been pretty good with my diet. I feel athletic and feel ready to go, man. I just freaking gotta be able to grab people, and it's a big part of the game, and be able to punch. So I'm hoping this freaking thing heals up fast.
You know, whenever we talk to Ray Longo, he's always talked about how much of a natural you've been with whatever it is you've tried to do. When it comes to being behind the camera, or in front of the camera, I'm sorry, would you say, like, where's your comfort level at that now? Like, do you feel like you're even getting better at that? Because I think you're actually pretty good.
What are we talking about? With like Fox analyst work?
Yeah, analyst work, being in front of the camera.
So being in front of the camera, like, at this point is easy. It doesn't really stress me out. If it's like a, you know, interview in the gym, or, you know, me just talking about myself, or cameras following me around, I really did kind of get used to it, and I'm fine. But the Fox analyst thing is definitely it's different. It's you know, it's a little bit, you rehearse a little bit. You know, you got people talking in your ear. They're telling you when to rap on your comment. They're telling you when to piggyback off of somebody else and speak on a topic. And so you know, you have to look at certain cameras. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes with the Fox analyst stuff that gets some, you know, you need the reps, I feel like, to get more comfortable. And, you know, and the whole goal is to be up there and be as comfortable as possible and make it look natural, right? And if you're able to, you know, get enough reps and be able to deal with all those different things going on at the same time, I think you'll be all right. And I'm getting more comfortable with it. for me, like for the Fox analyst work, I feel like I'll have like an awesome take where I'll make perfect sense. You know, I'm relaxed and I'm clear and concise, and then we go on a break. I come back and I'm like completely just have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. I'm stuttering and I'm like, what the heck? Where'd that guy go? The one who was just here. So I'm a little inconsistent, I feel like, because I'm not 100% comfortable with it. But again, like I don't know, I like doing uncomfortable things. You know, that's how you grow. And so I'm gonna definitely keep doing it. I enjoy doing it for sure.
Chris, I was going to ask you about the analyst work, but more about from the acting angle, because we're talking on the show a lot, you know, with Ronda Rousey and making her, you know, transferred over to WWE, and a lot of the aspect that not a lot of people talk about is the acting aspect. And you know, coming from that, you know, with my background, I know just from doing theater in school and doing acting, it's actually helped me a lot in other jobs I've had later in life, whether it's being on the media side of things or other. And sorry, a little long-winded setup, but I noticed you on the analyst desk, and you know, you like you said, being concise and stuff. That's something that kind of everybody has to work on. There's all those basics. But is there any of your acting chops that are bleeding in? Because it looked like you were having some, you know, being real comfortable, throwing some jokes up there. Like I really like that version of Chris Weidman. Is there any of that?
Honestly, that's just me trying to be myself. And I'm very sarcastic and I'm a ball buster when I'm just being myself. So I try to, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like people want to see somebody that's being themselves and being real. And so as much as I can, I feel like the more comfortable I get, I'm able to put that out there. And, you know, whether you like me or not, or you think I'm funny or not, you know, at least I'm being me. And so, yeah, I'm trying to do that as much as I can. And, yeah, and the acting thing, it's been great. Like, my first time ever acting, that actually got aired, was an episode of Kevin Can Wait, which is Kevin James' show. If you don't know him, obviously King Queens, he's known for a bunch of movies. He's pretty famous. So most people should know him. And then, so I was acting. What's that?
No, I was just saying, we know who he is, Nick Dawson. We know your role.
Okay, my bad. All right, yeah, so, I mean, it's my first time acting, and I had actually a lot of lines for my first time, and it was with Adam Sandler and Kevin James. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But again, it was like the same thing. Like, oh shoot, hang on, Tom. Are you on your seatbelt? All right, hang on. I just had my phone up to my ear, and there's a cop there. See if we get pulled over. And what was I saying? Oh, you know, it's the same thing. Like, Adam Sandler and Kevin, they're just they're so comfortable, you know, being themselves on camera. And obviously, their lines are scripted, and they have to, you know, play those lines. But they're really just so good at being comfortable and not being uptight. And so being around them, it was nerve-wracking at first, just being around two guys who were so experienced and have accomplished so much. But because they were so comfortable with each other and with me, it just made me feel more relaxed. And it was really a big help. It was a great learning experience for the first time on the big screen.
Well, it sounds like all those experiences from the acting is helping you, you know, like you said, even just, you know, be yourself, which, you know, from comedians to anybody, people in your position, that's often something you hear is how to bring yourself onto the stage, so to speak. So it sounds like your head's in the right place for that. But let me ask, are these like seeds being planted, Chris? Man. Because you seem like a student of the game. Is this something you're going to continue to do, considering that it can help your acting and both your analyst and kind of your fight career as well, right?
You know, I think developing on their own, and I'm just trying to take advantage of it as much as possible, and you know, just trying to grow as a person. You know, see what I could do. I mean, every time I have these opportunities, I go out there. I try to do my best. You know, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I don't think I do that good. You know, I'm definitely critical of myself, but like I'm doing my best, and I have no regrets. And the acting. You know, when I'm doing it, I'm loving it. But at the end of the day, like right now, there's nothing more important to me than the fighting and accomplishing more in the UFC. And so that's really where my mindset is. When I'm done with this, I'm definitely the type of person to dive into something with everything I have. So I don't know what field they'll be in. It could be acting. It could be analyst work. I now have a TV show with MSG called Weidman's World. It's starting to air a little bit, and that's me hanging out with different athletes and, you know, interviewing them, 20-minute hits, and it's just, you know, they can ask me questions, I ask them questions, we play a sport together. I like to prank them. We do board games, whatever. We just mix it up. I did the Islanders and the Rangers so far. I'm actually doing the Knicks on Wednesday. So
damn, that sounds pretty cool.
That is awesome.
I'm diversifying my thing.
But it's not a national show. It's just local MSG over there, or
hang on 1 second. Sorry. No, it's MSG Networks, which is like the largest local sports network there is, I guess, in the world.
Okay.
Hang on. I'm sorry. 1 second.
The cops didn't get him, did they?
I'm sorry. I'm picking up my kids from school, and I don't know where to go.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah. Are you good, or do you need to go?
Okay. No, I'm good. I'm sorry.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Do you think you could fight into your 40s like Yoel and Anderson have, or is there? You think 7 years might be too long?
I mean, I don't see that happening. I don't want to do that. But again, I don't like to. I'm sorry, I'm multitasking. I don't want to say for sure that it won't happen, but if everything works out the way I want it to, that's not going to happen.
Who's the greatest middleweight champion ever, and who's in your Mount Rushmore of middleweights in the history of our sport?
Oh man, it's tough now because of all these PEDs. I would always say Anderson Silva. I'm pretty sure I have the most title defenses of somebody who hasn't failed the drug test. So I gotta say I'm right up there.
Yeah, because the other day when Yoel won his fight over Luke, a lot of them were saying, well, man, he's put together quite a resume, and it made me think, gee, I wonder who the 4 greatest middleweights are. It's something we haven't done here as a panel yet, but people love Mount Rushmore because you have to pick 4 of them. But, preparing for this interview and looking back at what you did, I think you were there.
I think I should be the biggest. I should be the biggest head on that Mount Rushmore, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, you're definitely on the Mount Rushmore. All right, and the last thing, this one's a little bit more on the personal side, but when you were champ, you were a pay-per-view guy. In other words, you got those cuts. So did you make considerably more as a champion than you do now? And if so, does that make it harder to have these other fights just because you don't get paid as much as you once did?
Yeah, no, I definitely got paid way more money as a champion, and it doesn't make it harder. It's just I'm more. I'm just very driven to get that title back for more than the reasons of just having the belt at this point. I know what that belt means. I've had it, so there's a lot of reasons why I want that.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us catch up with you. I really hope your hand gets healthy soon, and we can see you on one of these fight cards this summer. Thanks for giving us some time here on MMA Junkie Radio.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, take care, Chris. All right, we'll see you.
All right.
There you have it, folks. Former UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman, looking to get healthy and take a fight booking hopefully this summer. So looks like Jacare and Gastelum, there's nothing he could really do about it, and the UFC just moved on. I had wondered if he was healthy, what kind of a problem that may have been, because I love Kelvin Gastelum. He's a great fighter, been able to do really good things at 2 divisions. But once you lose to someone and it's within the year, you'd feel like, well, that kind of puts them aside. But now hearing upon all this, it all kind of just makes sense. So there you have it. And we're hoping that maybe in a couple weeks he will get more of a clearance so that he can start accepting some of these matchups that are out there. Which, by the way, when we come back, maybe we'll figure out what name we'd like to see him against, because everyone seems to be all tied up. It may have to be him waiting on the result of a fight, like Tavares Jocko, like Costa. He's fighting somebody who I forget. You guys know? Paulinho Costa? He just took a fight booking. Yeah, I'll have to look up and see who it was, but I remember going, ooh, that's a good
Uriah
one.
Hall.
Uriah Hall, yeah. Something like that. Which, by the way, he beat Hall even before he was in the UFC.
Like
when they were at CFFC.
Like
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we got to take this break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93.
Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start. You told me that code would get rid of them. Yeah, well, they're still here. Okay, but now they know I tried to kill them. Hold on, Mom. Here are George and Goes.
Leonard Skinner is playing a private show in Atlanta exclusively for SiriusXM subscribers, and we have the chance for you to be in the front row. One grand prize winner will get a trip to Atlanta, front row tickets, and the opportunity to meet the band. Plus, check out their limited time channel, Freebird, Leonard Skinner's Southern Rock channel, starting March 2nd on Channel 30. For official rules and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Freebird. Do that before March 8th. No additional purchases necessary. Let's talk to Showtime in Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's yo time.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Hi.
Hey, man. I'm trying to think of what my take is, man, on the Josh Emmett protesting. Man, I think he was actually toast before any of those, the knee or the elbows or whatever. I think he was already toast, man. I think he just should go on and take that L like a man. He got smoked because actually, the other guy was able to come back from almost being knocked out and smoke him. Sometimes you just gotta take it on the chin, man, and learn from it. Keep going, man.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, Showtime, but my point is going to take a few minutes. Are you guys okay with a couple minutes of overtime or no?
Orale.
Danny, Olkers?
I'm good.
Okay, so let me start off by saying this. When he threw the first elbow, we're all in agreement that the second one was pretty blatant, right?
I think it landed more, but I don't think that either one of them he threw with the... I don't even think that he knew that it hit the back of the head.
The second one's pretty clear.
But he was also churning. I think he was just... Like a lot happens from the time that you wind back.
Right.
The guy's head's moving.
That's the pass I give him on the first one.
On purpose,
but the second one, he's on top of him, and he clearly just goes boom. And so for Showtime to... I mean, I understand he's got to say what's on his mind. But between that and then the knee that grazed, we don't know what effect that had. We don't know what effect the back of the head was. So if I'm telling, like, let's say I could stop him from going, no, you can't do that, and I stop his arm. Okay, then what would be next? As he's, whatever it is that could be next, that could be allowing the other guy to recover. If I stop him from doing the knee, or even the knee hitting on the back, maybe that could allow Josh Emmett to recover. All these things, just we didn't give Josh Emmett, and like as it was pointed out by Showtime early on, Josh Emmett hurt Jeremy Stevens, and it looked like that one could be close, and he came back. So how do we know that Josh Emmett couldn't come back? Josh Emmett didn't even get the chance to come back because of some illegal strikes that were out there. So that's the part that we're not sure. Now, one thing you said, despite all this, despite appeals and all, Showtime, you're right, man. It looks like you just, at this point, you're just going to have to move on. I think he needs to go into the appeal knowing that more than likely, if it happens, great. But he's, he just has to hope that his stock doesn't drop within the UFC, and he'll get put in another great position so that he can compete again, on a co-main or whatever. Because this was main event status for crying out loud. That's pretty legit, and now it's all gone. But anyway, I'm going to allow you to retort and the guys to give their final thoughts just for a couple minutes. We'll do a little bit of overtime. SiriusXM audience, you're going to get more additional combat sports and entertainment headed your way. And if you missed any part of the show, you know that we're on that SiriusXM app. You can catch us commercial-free and in HD quality. The rest of you, head on over to facebook.com/official MMA Junkie or youtube.com/MMA Junkie video for some overtime.
Never be the same again. I'm gonna keep on the run, I'm gonna have me some fun. It cost me my very last dime. If I wind up broke, well, I'll always remember that I had a swing in time.
You guys are clear for overtime?
All right, Showtime, what's up?
Yeah, I most definitely understand what you're saying, George. I just, you know what? I think this all goes back to, man, with when is the correct time to stop the fight, man, because in my personal opinion, once he got hit and he went to the ground, then he got hit again, and the first elbow, I think the fight should have been over with then. Especially when Stevens came down basically from, what was that, like a jumping elbow when he was standing and came down and hit it. I think the fight should have been over. There's only so much damage we can just let these fighters take, man.
Yeah.
And I think they need to get together, man, all the
officials, all the organizations, man, and find out when
Yes.
in these fights. 'Cause
For damn sure. That I'd like to see. Everyone on the same wavelength. Enough with this. One weekend it's this, another week it's that. You know, that's not good for the overall. I thought maybe it would just take a while. Like, oh, maybe Nevada only votes, you know, every third month, and we haven't been to Nevada yet, so we missed it on the first show. But by the next time they come, so I thought all that was going to get sorted out in 2017. But here we are, a whole year later, and there's not only is there 2017 rules, there's pre-2017 rules, and I swear to you, in Brazil, I could have sworn them say it was a hybrid, where some 2017 rules were in effect, but others weren't. Come on, man, that's ridiculous. It can't be like that. And here's one last thing that I'll say, and then I promise I'll really, really shut up this time. One thing I guess that just doesn't sit well with me, because in the end, what is it that I hope, George? George, what do you hope? That they'll return it? I mean, what do I care? I don't get none of this money. I do want him to get it right. I don't want Mergulata to lose his job. I think he's a great ref. He just had a bad sequence there. I don't think too much stock will drop here. Stevens has been on a roll. You can't take that away from him. But here's the one thing I just don't like is that Stevens knowingly threw an illegal strike. How does he not get that after 27, 28 fights in the UFC? That was with bad intentions, and I don't know, man. That's because Mergulata didn't do anything. There's going to be no repercussions to that. Again, I don't want him to lose his job. I mean, maybe I want to find. I don't know, but how can you just all of a sudden need someone like that so blatant, even whether it missed or hit? How can you do that? You can't do that. I mean, and to be able to get away with one, and to give the explanation you did in the back. I mean,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes zero sense to me.
I agree with everything you guys are saying, but there are two things that I will kind of say. Is the intent? It gets a little shifty. I think that we have to remember that the last time a knee controversy came up, it was also with Dan Mergliotta, not to pick on Dan Mergliotta, but it was also in a state that just so happened to adopt these new rules, which, by the way, co-signing on your guys' point, which I think is the bigger point here, that we should all be on the same page. But I think there's a little bit of forgiveness here, you know. And what else was a common thread? Mergliotta, a state that was doing shifty rules, and two of the most experienced fighters by record, Gegard Mousasi and Jeremy Stevens. Why is it the most experienced, some of the most best guys doing it? Because of the rules changes. And I think...
But they're not the same, though, because Mousasi lifted up Weidman's arm, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And
he tried to do that, yep.
He's not trying to tell you that he wasn't going anywhere else. I mean, he was telling you he was going there in a legal fashion. And because... Remember, back in the day was the whole, not just tippy finger, it was palm, right? And so I feel like that one was like Mousasi made a decision, oh, now it's legal. Whereas Jeremy has no idea what a legal or illegal strike is according to his definition, and you know what I mean. So that's why I'm thinking, like, how is he able to get away with that? Is beyond me.
I don't think he should be able to get away with it. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think we should be careful by saying same with the Li Jing Li thing. I think it's legal. I think it should. You know, I'm on board with that, but I think we need to be careful with blanket statements saying this is what this guy intended to do. What the F is wrong with him? I think that is a little strong.
Why is that?
Because we don't know. Because
what was he trying to do? He was trying to kneel.
Explained it. I think he explained it. I don't think it was a just explanation. I don't think it exonerates him, but it explained why he was so obvious with it. Because I agree, he was more obvious than it with Mousasi. Why could he be so obvious? That was my first thing. But as soon as he said it, even though I didn't agree, even though upon further review of the rules he was not correct, it does. Again, you don't have to agree with it. It doesn't mean he's exempt. But it does explain his actions. Would you rather him immediately do it and then go, I don't know what I was fine, I didn't, and then play the game like every other fighter does in every other scenario?
Answer that he, not yours, his, that you find yourself thinking, does he even believe it? Like,
which, yes. See
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
no, I see what you're saying, but then that leads me to go, okay, now that rounds back to he was citing how he was explained to. Now you can go into, okay, well, did he interpret it wrong? Was it explained to him wrong? Was it both? And again, these things, again, are pointing to the bigger weighing factor, which you guys already nailed in the head. We all need to be on the same rules. I don't know if it's, again, does that mean Mergliata's not at fault? No, he has some fault. Does it mean Jeremy Stevens has no fault? Absolutely he has fault. Does it mean it was right, that it probably should have been handled differently? I honestly am of the belief it should have been handled differently. All I'm saying is I think that we need to be a bit forgivable in the effort of trying to solve the bigger problem at hand, is instead of pointing fingers at this or that or saying this guy intentionally did to do this, we need to just think about more about the actions that make it right, because these things, as much as we hate them, they are going to happen. And we could go for days, we could talk about the eye poke and compare it to Jason Knight's finger biting. And then there's a bunch of hypocritical things we could use to cancel out each other's arguments, and we could be here all day doing that. I think the more important thing to do is to realize the bigger problem at hand, which, again, something you guys nailed on the head, and I agree with, is the rules change.
Yeah, he's just too much of a veteran of the game to not, whether it was 2016 and before or 2017 rules, he was completely wrong because the guy's knee was down. In no rules, other than pre-unified rules back in 2000 with Larry Hazard and Big John and all them, was that legal. And the funny thing is I honestly, you could line up all 600 UFC athletes and then individually whisper in their ear and go, "Can you knee an opponent has a knee on the ground?" They'd all whisper back, "No," with the exception of Jeremy Stevens. Which I don't understand why everyone gets it except him.
I don't know. Tim Means didn't get it. Tim Means had a just as questionable one, a more closer example than my Musasi one. And again,
what did Means do?
Means was in the wrong. It was the first Alex Cowboy Oliveira fight, and it was the same thing where Means was citing the rules.
Or two?
Well, Means was citing the hands, and he was going, "No, I was explained that the hands were this way, and that's why I need Oliveira." And Oliveira was against the fence like this, except Oliveira was on one knee. So again, it was the exact same kind of scenario in the sense of one fighter was citing the hands rule, but they weren't citing the reiteration and verification, which is the whole point of the new rules as far as the downed opponent to the knee. So I guess what I'm saying is it was a dumb thing on Stevens, and if you want to line up Stevens and Musasi and Tim Means, sure, I'll say Stevens was the dumbest one, but the point is they're all the same in the sense of these are all victims, just like us as the viewers, just like the refs were stuck having to commit. We're stuck trying to juggle what rules are what rules aren't, and clearly, I don't know what it is, because it's clearly, like you said, for whatever reason, even the most veteran fighters are getting mistaken by it now, but clearly there's some kind of process that's not going right here, whether it's in the back rules, from the commissions all the way down to the fighter. There's something in that chain of command that's wrong. I think that needs to be fixed.
I think.
Wait. In the chain of command, what do you mean?
As far as who's deciding these rules, these commissions, and how they're enacting them.
I thought you meant the way the refs are explaining the rules.
Everybody on the way down. We all just got to be on the same page. I think that's the best thing we can do.
The one strike that haunts me over and over is the second elbow. I think we can all agree that was to the back of the head.
Which second elbow we're talking? Because I think George was talking about the initial elbows, and then Showtime was talking about the ending one, right?
Kind of like here by the ear.
Okay.
I thought it was to the back of the head, but it's one where happening.
Okay.
That's
all right. Here's the one I'm talking about. He puts him down with a left hook.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Emmett falls down.
Yep.
Emmett then starts to kind of fold over, because you're right. Jeremy comes in with a massive elbow. I think his whole body, his head, chest, and elbow or fist or something collides. They collide.
Would be the third one.
Yeah, and then he throws a couple elbows. They're good. Then the third one, back of the head, but I don't fault him because the motion was legal, but when hit, illegal. But then the next one, it's like there's that illegal spot that I'm not supposed to hit that I just hit, and it's all happening fast. I realize it, but it's blatant. You see what I'm saying?
That's the one that haunts me, because we can all agree that's an illegal strike, correct? Was the referee out of position? I would say no.
He wasn't, no.
Right there in front of him.
Yeah.
Would most fighters say that a shot like that would do a lot of damage to him? Probably. So by that definition, I feel it affected the outcome of the fight.
Now, even on that one, here's the funny thing. We'll save some of this for Big John McCarthy. I believe he's going to be a guest of ours tomorrow. But even on that one, it's all happening so fast. Like, did we hear Mergliata go, "Hey, watch the back of the head"? I didn't even hear that.
No, but he did make a motion, which I thought was him going
to stop the fight or stop Stevens
we don't
from
know.
Okay,
that's the thing.
Right. Yeah. So then on that second one, as he does it, that's jacking up Emmett even more, right? But even on that one, I can go, well, maybe yet again they caught a piece of the ear. I don't know. But when Stevens actually goes back and sees a guy with his knee on the ground and hits him, how does he not stop that? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's more questionable for me too.
That's the intent of the fighter that just did that, and that's questionable. And now this, woo, man, that's just too much for me. That I don't know, man, because and then we have to find out about the knee retracting. on the way back
I think
from
that,
the strike, what the legality is there, because by definition, I believe it's a knee strike. It wasn't a hard one, but it came in contact with the head. If we're questioning whether the graze is a technicality or not, which Daniel Cormier, he's saying that hit, he's bringing it up for a reason, then who knows? I think it'll be a fun show tomorrow. I believe John McCarthy, not confirmed yet, will be a guest of ours. And we'll tackle it a little bit more. You want to say something?
Hey, I just wanted to add one more point because so you guys reminded me of it, and you guys said it in the original hash of this was the elbows. And I guess my thing when I said earlier situational circumstance, I think I want to elaborate on that because I think that first of all I cited with Goes that and again I'm on the side of the referee should have stopped the action for any of these strikes that we're talking about. Okay. But what Goes said as far as the elbows go, I will say, again, situational circumstance, I'm more sympathetic to that. I think if you're going to form an opinion on that one, you can't watch it in slow-mo. Because if you watch it in slow-mo, that looks much more...
That's a good point.
Much more in reaction.
Joe Rogan got caught up on that.
And Emmett is actually swimming in for a single leg, which is one of your most high percentage moves as far as what you can target and get up, as far as getting up safely, because it only exposes the back of your head, which only gives them an illegal strike. And it's something that was taught to me in training, and I would pass on to guys as well. Go for that single leg. You don't want to take a shot in the back of the head, but it's better than giving up your back and losing position. You're re-wrestling back into the fight, and the only target you're giving them, unless they want to quickly do a Travis Brown elbow, is a shot to the back of the head. So, in other words, Josh Emmett, the action that he was doing was only giving that target. Now, does that mean it's okay for Jeremy Stephens to strike it once or twice? No, it does not mean it's okay. But it was in a situational circumstance of wrestling. Just like when a fighter turns his head, well, he punched to the back of the head. Well, yeah, the fighter was turning. You can't fault him for that. Sure, that only can go so far. But I do believe it's well within that realm. And in fact, I believe that realm is extenuated when we're talking about grappling circumstances in a guy striking, as opposed to on the feet. I believe there's actually more leeway, even though it seems like it's more of a controlled environment, because there's just so much moving pieces and there's so much grappling. And again, if we're going to throw an exact fighter argument to throw water, but remember before Eric Silva was on his downfall and we were giving him the John Jones treatment, oh, he only lost once, but it was a DQ that shouldn't account. Everybody said that at least once. And in that fight, I believe I want to say it was against Carlo Prater, it was actually kind of a similar position where Carlo Prater was probably already on his way out. Eric Silva already iced him, but he's kind of trying to re-wrestle back in position, and Eric Silva tries to stop his momentum and pin him and starts hitting him, but a couple of those elbows go to the back of the head. The ref stops, and everybody's so up in arms. We ruined Eric Silva's illegal record. But we can't look. And now again, there's knees and there's a whole bunch of other stuff attached. But I'm saying out of principle here, be a little careful with the elbow argument and the knee argument.
I'm going to watch it at full speed because you're right. The slow motion does make a difference. Yep. And I remember Joe Rogan getting caught up in that when he goes, watch, there's a full 3 seconds. And, of course, everybody gave him a hard time that he was watching in slow motion. But here's one more thing that I thought of was if he had called that, let's say he stopped it after the second elbow and they separate him.
Yep.
Emmett can't continue. The referee has one decision to make. Ooh. It was intentional and Jeremy Stephens is disqualified, or it wasn't intentional, and they either go to the scorecards after if they're in round 3, and if not, then it's declared a no contest, right? You guys are following me here?
Yeah.
What do you think Miragliotta would have said? I'll go first. I think he would have said on the elbow, I think he would have said, I can't determine that it was intentional, therefore it's not intentional. I think we would have had a no contest because it was all happening so fast. I think that's what he said. That's what he would have said. What do you guys think?
I think if the fighter was just laying there or sitting there and he threw it, then yeah, you could say it's intentional. But he wasn't. He was moving, so I don't think you can call it intentional.
I agree with that, and also with the thing me and Goes picked up reluctant body movement, I think was the key in our observation of Miragliotta. So if his body movement was reluctant, I'm on your side, George. I think his call would have been reluctant too, and no contest.
Okay, and then let's say they stopped it after the knee. Then when the commission official goes, Dan, what do you think of that? What do you think Dan would have said if that was intentional or not intentional?
I think he would have said intentional.
Right, it's like a slam dunk of all slam dunks, right?
I feel
there's no other thing he was trying to do but to knee him in the head. Yeah. Therefore, it'd be a disqualification. I guess.
And again, even though the knee didn't hit, just that visual that George was talking about, I think would be enough to put weight on Big Dan to maybe put him over that envelope. As far as that was intentional. We're gonna call that a DQ. That's an interesting fold to it.
Yeah, all right. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. Showtime. Hopefully, we addressed your question.
Showtime's a blabbermouth, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Hey, man. Hey, Hey guys, hey, one more quick point. I wonder if they ever thought about putting a second official, a second guy right there to watch the fight closely, because just think OSP was tapping and the ref, he didn't see it. He had already tapped.
We didn't even get to that fight. So the other refs can actually give their opinions. The other refs can actually give their opinions. And sourcing what Dan was just saying, it was either Musasi Weidman or Yoel Weidman. Big John assisted Dan, actually. Yeah, I think it was with that call. So the other referees can definitely intervene and assist.
Oh, all righty, guys. Great show as always, man.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, we are out of here. Big thank you to Chris Weidman and Matt Erickson, Cyborg Santos. Stay, well, that's it. Fuck it. We're out of here. Go out there and be a champion.
Oh, that's